Welcome back to UMKC Bands at the Conservatory during COVID-19. Tonight's episode is, we're talking about winning and keeping an orchestral job. And towards that end, we have three amazing, experienced gurus that are going to offer their wisdom, but I'm going to let Joe introduce them to you. And just know at the start of this that we're exceptionally thankful that you've given time to spend with us, and we hope that you'll benefit from tonight.
The experience, thank you, Steve. The experience of our panel guests this evening span decades of orchestral experience and collegiate teaching. We have some commonalities amongst our guests with the New World Symphony, all the way to the Detroit Symphony, Philadelphia Symphony, Chicago Symphony, Kansas City Symphony, and we are just delighted to have you all with us. I'm just going to say hey and have you wave to the folks so they know who you are. I think it may be obvious for some, but Denise, could you say hello to everyone? This is Denise Tryon, who currently is professor at the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music. Michael Gordon, who is Kansas City Symphony principal flutist, and Yo-Ming Chen, who's a violist in the Chicago Symphony, and I will say a proud alum of UMKC. We're delighted to have you. Well, we're delighted to have you all with us. And just to frame tonight's dialogue a bit, our students, over 100 of them, sent us questions about this particular panel, and we whittled down to about 10 that were most poignant and relative and repetitive amongst the themes to have them share those with you so we can get those answers. And so we'll start with Denise and Professor Davis. Would you mind starting us with Denise?
I'd be happy to. Hi, Denise. The first question that was requested, sorry, use your words, Steve, was what do you listen for in an audition when you're sitting on a panel? And second part of that, to you, and I know this is individual, what are automatic disqualifiers?
Well, first and foremost, I want to hear great music. I want to hear somebody being confident and convinced in what they have to say as a musician. Speaking technically about what I'm also listening for, of course, I want somebody who has a good sound, and then specifically what's going to work within the orchestra that I'm playing in. But the number one disqualifier is rhythm. If you can't play good time with yourself, how am I supposed to play in an ensemble with you? Because there is, there are two conductors here, some amount of help that the conductors give, but you really have to have good internal rhythm, especially the farther back you get, there's this really big lag that happens. So first and foremost, music, because I think that gets lost in a lot of high school, college, and post-college age players, and really be sure that you're paying attention to your rhythm and just your general good technique.
Yo-Ming?
Yeah, what I'd like to hear is same thing, good music. They have to know the music. You know, don't play Brahms like you play Mahler. Those are two very different composers, different time periods. And automatic disqualifiers would be, again, also rhythm and also dead boring. Some people think perfect and boring is the way to advance or win an audition, but that is not true. Because I want to enjoy sitting next to this person, and I want to enjoy their music too. So it is essential that they bring their musicianship to the stage, to their playing.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you'd find a musician to disagree with any of those things, and I definitely don't. You know, it boils down to this for me when I'm listening to someone from behind a screen. I want to hear if they can listen critically to themselves. Ultimately, is what it boils down to for me, and that includes, you know, good sound, good rhythm, musicianship, all of these things. You know, are they playing the music in a way that I can conceive of how it fits into, you know, the piece as a whole? You know, and usually when they're playing excerpts, it's it's from very standard repertoire most often. So any orchestral player listening to you is going to have played, all the Brahms symphonies frequently, all the Beethoven symphonies frequently, etc. And for me, I usually identify that pretty quickly in the audition, one way or the other, and it's a fairly rare instance, especially in a prelim I'm talking about. It's a fairly rare instance that somebody convinces me otherwise by the end of their audition. And it's not about making mistakes. Mistakes are great. I've voted for so many people who have made mistakes, and I've not voted for so many people who have played, what one might consider to be a mistake-free audition, but lacking in that basic ability to listen to oneself and have a sort of musical self-awareness.
So, Michael, I'll return to you for this. So now you won the job, and our other panelists, be thinking about this, because I'm sure your experiences as a wind player, a brass player, and within a string section, there's some similarities, but I bet you there's some unique opportunities there too. So you win the job. It's a probationary year. What are some things that you've got to kind of ensure that you are aware of to make sure that the future is a good one in that section and in the orchestra?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's so important, and it boils down actually at first to some very simple things. Um, you know, come prepared, obviously, but come behaving as a professional. That means have a sense of awareness. Different orchestras are different as far as even their level of formality of dress. Like, the Kansas City Symphony is relatively casual, but even so, on my first day, I dressed a heck of a lot nicer than I do on an average day now. I sat down, I was cordial and friendly to people, and I tried to introduce myself. And you read people's body language when they're on stage warming up. Some people, them, they do not want to be disturbed, and you just kind of have to read the room. Sit down. Don't play your concerto on stage while you're warming up. Don't even shred through your entire part full volume. Warm up, do what you need to do, but project confidence. Even if you don't have it, fake it till you make it. And as a wind player, in particular a flute player, one of the things that I immediately recognized as a new player, I had to have a good relationship with the principal oboe, who of course is the person that sits next to me. And Ming, you can tell Laura that I was very concerned about having a good relationship with her. Laura Schaefer is, of course, now in the Chicago Symphony and our former principal here. But that was a really important thing for me. And I knew if I could have a good relationship with that person, things were going to get off on the right foot. So think about, who you're sitting next to and who you play really closely with, and make sure that, from the get-go, you have a good relationship musically and personally with that person.
So just quickly, Michael, how many years in Kansas City?
I've been here 13 years. I'm starting my 14th season.
And Yo Ming, now you're Chicago, how many years?
I think 5.
5.
Plus 2 years in Kansas City.
Right. And then Denise had 3. You had Detroit and Philly and Columbus, and right, so a total of
and Baltimore and New World. So all that together was about I think it's about 23 years.
Yeah, and I told her she looks amazing for 30 years old. That's awesome.
Amazing.
I know. Yo Ming, so any thoughts on your part about that through your experiences?
On the probationary?
Yeah,
so I went through, actually I was on probation for I think 4 years straight, from Grant Park to Kansas City to Chicago. It was just like bam, 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 one after another. So it was like 4 years of being on probation. Not the nicest thing, but as Mike was saying, you have to sort of get to know everybody, be on your best behavior. In my case, in different orchestras, I had to sit with other people, not just the same person all the time. I was an associate in Kansas City, so I was sitting with Christine at the time, mostly. But when you're in a section, you're always switching with some switching seats, if it's a rotating section. And it was just kind of figuring out what everybody does. I think KC is, they're a great bunch, really, really nice people to be with. In Chicago, we're very different. Everyone is just a little quirkier. So I had to learn what they like and what they don't like, and in some ways really play good chamber music with them, you know, to my own stand with whoever I'm sitting that week. And be on best behavior, don't complain too much, don't be a jerk, things like that, be prepared, all the things that Mike already mentioned.
Denise, do you have anything else you want to offer? Are you okay?
The only couple of things I would say is that, especially if it's your first job, or potentially, you know, you've already had a job, but maybe this is a different position in another orchestra, that you really want to come in as prepared as possible. You want to know, really want to have studied the score, have listened to a lot of recordings, just so you have a sense of how your part works within both your section and the orchestra. And while I 100% agree with, you want to be on your best behavior, and at the same time, as somebody then who has also been on a committee, I want the person to also be themselves, because I do think there is a problem with somebody who comes in and they're just like, you know, they just try to fit in this box, and then they get tenure and then the box explodes. So if you can find a way to be yourself and be the most cordial that you can be, and you know, try to learn, you know, basically what everyone else said, try to learn sort of read the room, see what's going on.
Yeah, all good points. I mean, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So these questions obviously came from our amazing students at the conservatory, and these amazing students that want to have positions like you all have enjoyed are concerned about winning a job, of course. And Yo-Ming, we'll start with you. This question, someone just wants to know, and many people, you know, piggyback wanting to know the same sort of thing. What kind of experiences did you have, or was there certain kind of preparations that you did that you felt gave you an advantage walking into the audition scenario?
This is actually an awesome question since Mike is here. So when I was in Kansas City, I was like, I want to just keep going, you know, keep auditioning. And I joined this little club that was not really a club, but we just called it the Audition Club. And Mike was one of my jury members, if you will. So we would occasionally get together and use the hall to play. So we get to hear the hall sound, which is really, really crucial, because you don't get that. You don't get the that walk from the side of the stage to the center and do your spiel of your audition or your mock audition. So my preparation really stemmed, I think, from having the right people, you know, people like Mike here to play for, and finding the right people to play for is also really crucial, because you could play for your classmates and they can say, oh yeah, that sounds good. But I don't know for sure if they're hearing the same things, they're aware of the same things as a audition committee may hear. So it was very important to me early on to find people who are either in the circuit of auditioning or know what to listen for. And what was really awesome about this audition club was there was me, violist, Mike, flutist, a violinist, cellist, and a percussionist. So it was not just only viola. And I thought that was really, really helpful to hear what other instruments would tell me what to do, and also do the same thing. We have to give comments to somebody who's not playing our instruments. And that you know, gives your brain something to think about, what other people struggle with, and how they excel, and how they make the music work. Because we don't really want to know if it's a technical problem. Oh, it sounds like a technical problem. Well, get over it. You know, find a way to get around it to make it sound the way it should.
Michael, anything about preparations and advantages, or?
Well, I continue to take credit for Yoming's success, of course, and I'm very, he's a very esteemed graduate of the Audition Club. But actually, this is, I mean, for me, this was something that came out of, culture at New World, actually, and I'm sure Denise can speak to this as well. I mean, this is something we were encouraged to do all the time. And it was always, very collegial and incredibly helpful. And honestly, I found it helpful. We called it Audition Club, but I wasn't really taking any auditions. I was playing, for my colleagues, and I just found that helpful, regardless of auditions. But I think the real secret sauce of it, honestly, is that we played for people who play different instruments. And there is so much baggage, I think, we acquire within our own, instruments. If you're a flute player, this thing is hard in Firebird, and I don't like any flute players that play Firebird this way. It can only be that way. And more often than not, those things are irrelevant to everyone else who does not play their instrument, and we play our instrument, and we don't even realize it. So I think that's crucial, especially for students. You're often in studio classes, of course, commenting on each other's playing, but be proactive. Take the time to go listen to your friends and colleagues who play other instruments. You learn so much just by listening to other instruments and how they interpret their part of some of the same pieces. I think it's totally vital and maybe the most important part of all of that.
Awesome.
Denise, sorry to interrupt. You want to introduce us to Ozzy?
Oh my goodness, he's being such a pain right now.
I could tell he was scratching at the door. Sorry, guys. There he is.
Oh, hey, Pop.
There's the buddy. Hi, everybody. Practice your orchestra parts. Okay.
Oh. So, Denise, this actually fits in the next question beautifully if you want.
Okay.
Were there? Go ahead.
Can I answer the previous one?
Yeah. Well, because I was thinking the next one's like, were there any unexpected things besides Ozzy showing up? So, no, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Giuseppe. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's great to play for other people and friends, family, frenemies, whatever. And part of that is moving into the performance portion of audition taking. I find that people stay too long in the woodshed mode. Sorry, he's just going to walk in and out now. They just keep trying to tinker with everything instead of just actually learning how to play the excerpts one after the other. But the thing that helped me, two things that helped me. One, when I won my job after New World, was I started recording myself a couple of weeks before, and I would record, and then I would listen back the next day and write comments and work on that and then record again. And then when I won my job in Philly a couple of months before that, I started playing recitals again. And that, having to, especially being a low horn specialist, you don't get to hear your voice on top of the orchestra very much. And so I found that giving recitals made me learn how to really command a room and hold everybody's attention. And that really helped.
If you don't mind, can I put like an exclamation mark next to that? Because I found that in the last, 13 years of my career, I don't have that many opportunities to play solo music. And when I do, and especially now when I have all the time in the world to play solo music, it has made such a remarkable difference in my playing, in my enjoyment of my playing, in my overall comfort. So that goes double for me.
Well, you, Denise, and all of you, please, on this, you have auditioned and you have students that have auditioned, and maybe you can share some thoughts about any unexpected things that could happen on an audition day, or maybe from a personal story, or just to kind of get yourself in a mindset that our students asked, Were there any unexpected things that you should prepare for before this audition happens? I don't know how you answer that, so that's why I'm curious.
Well, I don't know how you prepare for something that's unexpected.
Right.
You know, there are only certain things that you can control on the day of
Right.
auditions or leading up to it. You can control what you eat. You can control the music that you want to play, the amount of time you take between, you know, those are the very few things that you can control. Everything else you can't. So you can't really prepare for it. And I'm sure we all have incredible, crazy stories that happen in auditions, which if we start down that road, then I think we can kiss the rest of this panel goodbye, because all we'll do is tell horror stories.
Right, right. I mean, I think their curiosity was just to go, you know what, life happens and you still do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I, you know, there are going to be things that they're going to throw out sight reading and things like that. And you just do the best that you can do. You try to remain as calm as you can and stay as level-headed as you can, and continue to put forth the best music that you can put out there.
Anything from Yo Ming?
I think just, you know, the old phrase, expect the unexpected. You really should just focus on your playing, your preparation. I think a lot of that comes through listening to someone. You hear someone play, it's like, yeah, they didn't prepare that diligently, but if somebody does prepare really, really well, they make a mistake, I don't care. I don't know about others, but I don't care as much. I think you can tell. So about other things, you know, the things that are unexpected, you can't prepare for them. You move on, get over it, and play. You know, focus on playing your best. Don't let that anything get in the way of you know, letting your focus go one way or the other. You know, because that's you should be focused the whole time. The morning you wake up, in your warm-ups or your preparation, getting on that stage in front of that stand, in front of a screen, and how you're gonna do it. Your focus should be still there. Sorry, I'm like repeating the same thing, but
Good.
Yeah.
Michael?
I don't have anything too insightful to add to that, other than I think it's just important to know yourself and you know what routines help you do your best, and as much as you can control when you're in, you know, in an audition, you're almost always in an unfamiliar environment, an unfamiliar building, an unfamiliar city, perhaps. You know, the other thing I would say too that I used to do a lot when I would go to auditions, if at all possible, I would figure out the day before exactly how I'm getting from, you know, my hotel to the hall. I'd go and just do it if I possibly could. I'd have some idea where I was going to get breakfast the night before, so I didn't have to figure that out. Like, as much as you can, you know, eliminate uncertainty, is helpful. Even music, like you go in most auditions, you're in a warm, if you even get a warm-up room, it's probably not terribly soundproof. You're hearing everybody just nail all the hardest things, just left and right. Every corner of the building is just teeming with perfect playing, it seems, and it's very intimidating. And it's a total fallacy, but it's what it feels like. And so I would always try to bring music and, you know, stick my headphones in, and I kind of had the same even mix of music that I'd listen to at auditions. And so just try to eliminate variables as much as possible.
Yeah. Rehearse the day and use a mindset to kind of process how to do it. That's good advice from all. Thank you.
I was spending some time with Marty Hackelman, our horn professor, here one night, and he said this. He said, be the person you want your stand partner to be, as a way of understanding what the most beautiful behaviors could be as a section member or a just a person in the orchestra in general. What are some things that can make section members more successful? And I know we're going to say be beautiful people, forgiving and kind and all that, but what are there things musically playing specifically that are some do's and don'ts that people shouldn't do? Don't stage up somebody, or don't play with a vibrato that this orchestra doesn't play with, or are there some things, any things like that that you'd want to add into this as well? And we'll start with Denise.
Okay, well, first and foremost, I want to say you need to be prepared. I mean, I love to have section mates who are prepared, and not only with their own parts, but also where they sort of want to breathe, especially section leaders, where they want to breathe, if they want the section to breathe together, if they want to stagger, to have a real concept of what they want to do, because then I can be a better section mate if I'm being led well. And I would say that I think that we all know this, but you don't go in and play and practice somebody else's solo. Let's say you're taking an audition and it has, the solo part that you're actually playing in the orchestra that week, that somebody else has a solo. Don't go in there and practice it. It's just rude. You don't want to go in there and play louder than your principal, because it can feel aggressive. And you want to be conscientious as much as possible. And when your section leader leans down and says something, you want to do your best to understand. And if you don't understand, you ask respectfully, could you please explain again, or talk to them afterwards, something along those lines.
Michael.
For me, and it's a little bit different perhaps in a flute section, because of course there's not so many of us, and various other things that are different about the horn, of course, but or strings. For me, I feel like, everything's working well when I don't actually have to say a lot. And I don't typically say a lot anyway. But I feel like as a section player, and, I've been principal here for a long time, but I have played in a section, of course, at festivals and previously in my life. I really enjoyed that, actually. And I feel like all the information you need 99.9% of the time, you can collect with your ears if you're listening. What I love is when the person sitting next to me does something differently than me the first time, if we're playing through something, on the first day. And then the next time we go past that same passage, it's different and it's resolved. And with a good section player, that will happen. I mean, I'm never impatient with somebody on the first or even the second, or sometimes even the third time if it's something complex, if they don't figure it out. But there should always be evidence of critical thinking going on in a section play. I mean, in any player, but in a section player, trying to figure out how do I function better as a section, in this passage or in that passage, or what did the principal do that I can support, or, where do I breathe, or how do I phrase, or how do I articulate something? And also, it's a tricky job, I think, because everyone has access to the information the conductor is conveying, and everyone has access to the information the principal of their section is conveying. And sometimes those things are different. Sorry, conductors. It just happens. And I think as a section player, you have to know your principal too, because I think different principals have very different expectations about how those discrepancies get resolved. And, or not even with a conductor, with another section. And sometimes those things you have to communicate about, but you really got to use your ears and be very aware. And if you're always evolving, through the course of a week and making changes, that is a great thing to show your other section mates and your principal.
Yo-Ming?
Well, everybody said great things. I don't have much to add, except maybe string players, we share music and we have fingerings. Some people like to put in. I don't, even on hard passages, unless they're really, really difficult and hard to remember, because they're simply a distraction. And with a section, with a stem partner, whose fingering you're going to use? Oh, the outside player put it on the top, bottom player puts it on the bottom. And then what happens if somebody gets sick? You got to move to a different stand, and it's all different. So I try to memorize my fingerings, but I would say some colleagues would put in a lot of fingerings. They're not really helping. Actually makes my job a lot harder because I have to go in and sort of erase them in my mind and just go along with what I remember, how I practice it. I have to just practice until I memorize them. Yeah, I think everyone hit the other big points.
So Yo-Ming,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start with you on this one. And you've encapsulated, all of you have encapsulated a lot of the answers. You've answered a lot of the questions our students have already asked. So I'm going to say, looking back, if you could tell yourself 10 years ago, things you knew now about being ready for an audition, is there anything different that you would tell yourself? Like, you know, don't worry about this, do that. Or is it the same? Did you stick with it because of resilience? You know, I mean, or do you have a vision of like, 10 years ago, I would have told myself this?
When I jumped in the audition circuit, I was kind of on a like accelerated course because I was finishing DMA at UMKC. And at the time, Alice, my wife, was pregnant with twins. So I was like, oh, I got to get a job really, really quick. So I was like, oh, crap, what am I going to do? So I sort of stuck my head in the sand and say, I'm going to find the best people who can help me. And I was very glad to, I played for as many people as I could, plus the Audition Club. I flew to Philly to have lessons with people that I know there, and just not stop. My mind was always playing the excerpts by itself, the whole excerpt, the whole piece. I'm sorry. And in some cases where people say, "Oh, this orchestra asked for 2 entire Brahms symphonies," I'm like, "So what? Like, go learn them. You're supposed to know that." Because once you come back to the actual excerpt part, it's only like a minute.
Right.
So I pressed pretty hard early on. This was not what I planned to do. I started doing auditions pretty late. I was already pretty old at the time, and everybody who was coming in who were in the 20s with a lot of fire in their playing. So I was like, I don't want to be bothered by them, as Mike hinted. Going into a warm-up room or there's just music going on everywhere, everybody nailing the hard parts. In the end, I just not cared anymore. I said, I'm going to do my own routine, and that's what I did. At home every day I do my routine. The audition day routine, I start every day. So the audition day is just another day, except you're on stage in a different city. So it's a lot of it. It's like blind myself and just do it. And a lot of it is, how can I get around not going through 10, 20, 30, 40 auditions and not advance or win anything?
No, and so I heard the same kind of sentiment from Denise. About 2 weeks out, I went through the routine, I played the excerpts, and I got to applaud Michael. I mean, the audition group idea sounds like a wonderful setting for colleagues. So maybe that's your, retirement fund there, Mike.
I don't think there's a lot of money in it.
Okay, well,
Except for Yo-Ming.
I mean, I was just trying to help you out here, man. That's your new book, the Audition Group. It'd be like 10 Talks, Audition Group. Any thoughts from both of you on that? Anything else, or?
Honestly, I felt like I started having more success in auditions when, and I don't know that I was able to do this at each consecutive audition, but when I was able to do it more, it was when my head was not in the space of trying to win a flute contest. And not that a horn player would ever be stupid enough to try to win a flute contest, but you know, whatever your instrument is, it's not a contest at your instrument. You know, it's a contest in music, and I am extremely confident that it's almost impossible for me to be the best flute player in a room on any given day. But you know, once I put more faith in my musicianship, and that was more my focus on stage when I was playing in front of a committee, I had a lot more success. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel tight. But achieving that on a regular basis, I'm not afraid to say it was never something I was particularly good at, and it's hard. It's really hard, and it's in many ways a skill unto itself.
Denise, what would you tell your 16-year-old self?
The only thing I would tell myself would be to not try to please the committee. I used to try and just bend my playing and myself into a pretzel just to like, please pick me. And now I realize I actually want to go out there and please me. And if I can do that, then if they like me, great, it's the right place, I'm doing the right stuff. If they don't, then okay, then, you know, I got to go back and I have to look at, was I able to actually do what I wanted to do? Were there big deficiencies in my playing? Or was it just, it wasn't quite the right fit? Because I think of any time you are playing something in front of other people, it's just a snapshot of where you are in your progression. So that's true for if you play in a master class, if you play a concerto, if you play an audition, whenever time you're playing in a large ensemble, it's just a snapshot of what's working and what maybe needs to be retooled in the practice room.
Great points. I think that's what I wish I could have told my younger self. Be more open and vulnerable and willing to keep it moving. We're all on a continuum. Thank you all.
We've all heard of the player and X ensemble. When we go to concerts, we watch them, they look like they've lost that spark, or they've lost that fire, or they're just phoning it in. We've all seen it. We can pretend it doesn't exist. It does. Why and what can we do as professionals to avoid this burnout, or what are things that keep people thriving in an orchestral scenario? And Denise. Sorry.
I have my mute on because my dog is barking and you called my name and I was like, oh, okay. I'm not sure I have the answer to that. You know, I think it's several fold. I mean, I think part of it is the industry itself. It can get a little bit tough as a creative individual to then sit in an orchestra and you're 100% being told what to do. So it sometimes takes the creativity out of it. Especially if you're not in a solo position, you know, because you've got two layers of, you know, you've got conductor, then you've got the section leader, and then, you know, and potentially, especially when I played fourth, then I'd have third horn, and it's like, you know, boop, 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 I'm so far down the totem pole. But I do think that chamber music opportunities and solo opportunities, it's really beneficial to help you reconnect with that spark. And if when you're in the orchestra, you can find those people to play chamber music with, you know, maybe you look at each other in the eyes, you know, I used to look at my string colleagues all the time and try to make music with them. That can help, but it is, I'm not sure I have a great answer for that. It is something that definitely happens.
Yo-Ming?
I'm actually going to piggyback on what Denise said. The answer from last question was, for this particular question, is really enjoy what you do. Play for yourself. If people around you are complaining more for that week, or just not having a good week, bad music or whatever, in whatever scenario, I find myself having a better time, and I try to tell myself consciously of this when I'm not doing so well, or I feel like my playing is not as good as it should be, is enjoy my own playing. Like, again, do it again. You know, why am I playing this instrument? I know everybody it's a viola, whoa. But you want to still make the best sound. There's a great violinist, Joseph Silverstein. He says, he was a concertmaster of Boston Symphony, and he said, I want to enjoy myself, I want to enjoy myself at work. I don't want to get worse. I want to get better. And I think that's what we have to be careful with is, when string players, we sometimes don't hear ourselves. We're in front of the trombones, when they play loud, we can't hear it. We could scratch away and nothing is coming out, it seems. But in whatever case, I think is really important to say, well, why am I doing this? Why am I still playing my instrument, whatever it may be? Enjoy it, find something that you can improve on. And there's always something I can improve. It's more and more, the list goes on much longer than it used to be. And I think it's gonna keep getting longer, but that doesn't mean I can't enjoy it. And I always find other things. I don't know about people's equipments. You can tinker with it, shoulder rest. You can find other things that can help you do your job better. And so I think being curious about your job or making music, let's say, and and keep going at it. I think it's just going to continue to develop. And if you don't like it, I think one of our older colleagues, when people complain so much, is that, well, if you hate it so much, just leave, So that's why they have said that before to other older colleagues. I think this Chicago folks they're just very blunt.
Michael?
Well, Steve, I don't know why you got to talk about me this way in front of everybody, my dead spark, but
No, not you.
no, it's a really, really important question. And, I think it's an interesting transition that happens in the life of a player. You're young and you really want an orchestra job. So, you go out and who you're playing for the people who are in a position to give you a job. And, that's your motivation, or at least part of your motivation. And then you get the job and your focus is often, mostly about pleasing the colleagues around you so that they want to keep you around. Maybe pleasing your conductor, so that he or she wants to keep you around. And then you go through, I think a little period of, maybe you've gotten tenure, you're in the orchestra of your dreams and you're doing what you want to do and you just kind of celebrate it for a little while. And then you realize, oh, what now? And I think what is so vital is to force yourself to continue to be creative in your job in whatever way you can. And, as a principal player, of course, I have certain opportunities to do that section players do not. But really, I think the impetus is the same. And I try to challenge myself. Sometimes I don't decide how I'm going to play a solo until, 2 measures before I'm playing it, just because I want that spontaneity and I feel like I do better work that way, and it's more interesting, it's more engaged. And then the last part of it that I think is really, 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 really crucial that gets overlooked is at some point you have to realize you are there to share this gift of music with the people at the concert, or if you're recording, the people who are going to listen to the recording, and that becomes your focus, and the act of the playing and the creating becomes all about that relationship. And if you can kind of get there and find excitement in that, I think that is another motivator, and it keeps you fresh. Because if you think you're going to get into an orchestra and have that same hunger, that same approach to music that you have preparing for auditions, you can't sustain that for 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years. You just can't. And you shouldn't. It's not healthy. You have to find other ways of fulfilling, your artistic impetus, I think.
I can't imagine anyone goes into it thinking they're going to be jaded. So what would it be great if we could come up with ways to recognize it happening in real time? Can you tell I'm watching Black Mirror like a lot these days, trying to
Well,
figure out ways to do that? But that's true. And we've all. I mean, I have valleys, and Joe has valleys, and sometimes we're on highs, and I've been in this job now for 15 years, and if I don't, that's 10 years longer than any other job I've ever had in my life. So then you get into this repetition, and repetition is not what your life has been. It's been doing this, achieving here, going to this festival, working this. It's been a lot of motion, and now all of a sudden you're in one place. That's a massive shift to just your environment, So Denise, you were going to say something.
yeah, I think that I will say that when I was a student, and I found that in a lot of my students, that there is this romanticized idea of what the gig is, and that, life's just going to be great, and it's, I'm going to get to play my instrument all the time. And then they come to me and they're like, how come I'm just not motivated to practice? And I'm like, motivated to practice? It's your job. Like, if this is what you want to do, it's your job to go practice. So as unromantic as this sounds, you have to treat it a little bit like that. And there are going to be times when you are super motivated to go practice, and there are other times when you're not as much. And but for pretty much everybody, once you get in the room, then the motivation happens. Then then everything starts flowing. And there are some days where you're really excited to go play the job. You're excited by the music, or your colleagues, or the conductor, the soloist, whatever. And then there are days that you are a little bit under the weather, or you don't like the music, or you don't like the conductor, or whatever is happening. And you still have to find a way to create music, make yourself the best player that you can be, and have the audience enjoy it. So there are times when it doesn't feel like a job, and there are days when it feels very much like a job. And figuring out how to go through those valleys, as as you guys were talking about, it's helpful.
Yeah. Well, I think Steve said it well, and you all have captured it. I mean, yes, it is a job, and a lot of people will ask us, "What do you do for a living?" Well, I'm a conductor, or I play an instrument, and I do. So I always try to imagine myself in an elevator with somebody who doesn't know what I do for a career, right? And then they see me in a tuxedo, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" Well, I'm gonna go conduct this thing over there, and people get excited about that because it's this glamour. And then when you've been doing it for a while, maybe sometimes we take some things for granted. But if I were to, here's a question, and Denise, I'll start with you. Touched on it. When in your case, reflecting on the job and looking at everything you've all done in the orchestral world, what did or does bring you the most joy in doing that gig? Because we've sat in it, we've stood in front of it, we've heard Mahler in that capacity, but for an audience member, maybe their first experience, like Michael said, it's a different experience. So when you're in the job that everybody aspires to see, like, wow, you're in Philadelphia Orchestra, you're in Chicago, Kansas City, you've been part of New World, what can you reflect on that brought you or brings you the most joy in that setting? Denise.
I'm going to go, it's been the same from the beginning when I decided that I wanted to go into music as a career. It's been the same all the way through, and that is making music with another person, having that connection, and being able to say something together and figure out what that is. When I was at Interlochen for summer camp, and I played these fantastic octaves with somebody, I was like, oh my God, that was amazing. I want to do that again. And it continued to be the same. I mean, and it's why, even though I've left the orchestra, I play in a quartet, and it's like, that's why I keep coming back to it. It's playing with somebody else. It's that joy.
Thank you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, playing with people, especially like right now, when we can't, that's something. I finally did it with like live audience, with string trio setting. It's like, wow, so nice to play for people, play with people, and it as strange as it sounds, it seems a little bit strange I haven't done it in half a year. Doing all these online things. I've done some, not as much as Mike, but that's a different thing, to record or follow someone else's recording, that's different. But to actually make live music, that is, it's got its own power. And I'm hoping that people who are missing making it, missing listening to it, realize that. And when this all is over, we can enjoy it again in person. So yeah, I think right now I'm preparing for a quintet that's happening in a few weeks. We're going to video capture it. It'll be with 4 live people, 4 live colleagues, and it's really, really exciting to actually practice the part, knowing that we're going to be together. We are sending each other parts as if we're going to do the recording online, but we're not. And doing the score studies, and I find that having not done that in half a year, it's like, wow, this is awesome. This is why I do this. I've lived for this, and this is what I'm going to do.
Thank you. Michael?
I could answer that in a few different contexts, I suppose, but particularly orchestra music, for me, it's the sense of being part of creating this experience that, none of us could do by ourselves, or really even as a small group. Orchestra is something unique. And, especially when you play one of the big works, big Mahler symphony, or, anything really, it's a physical journey. It's an emotional journey. Especially if it goes well, and you can feel when the audience is engaged. And I think oftentimes audiences don't realize how much of a shared experience with the musicians that they're having. We're not just little music bots up there, and that is something that for me is very hard to experience any other way. And I love that, and I can look back, I think we all probably can, on particular concerts. I play 200 concerts a year and not remember one of them, but sometimes there's a really special one that sticks out, that you remember how you felt in the moment, whether you were playing 12th flute or principal, or you had the big solo, or you didn't. Some of my favorite concerts that I can remember, I was playing second flute. It doesn't matter, but just that feeling of group achievement, and it's certainly true in chamber music as well, but there's nothing else really like it for me as a musician.
Yeah, I think we all miss it.
We're coming to an end. It's been an hour. It's moved quickly, but I know that you all teach some and play some, and are all amazing at all of this. And we have the next generation of artists listening right now to you. And final words of wisdom, something that we haven't talked about that you think is undo withoutable. Like they have to have this little snapshot from Denise and Michael and you.
I think too often people get tied into this idea of perfection, and it's not about perfection. And we've said it many times. There are many auditions that we've all taken that we've made mistakes and advanced and won. There are candidates who have auditioned and have made mistakes, and we've voted for them. It really is about discovering who you are as a musician and honing your craft so that you can say as much of what you want to say, so that you get your technique up to what you want to be able to say as a musician. And that's what's going to keep you coming back to become better and better and better. And it's what's going to help you stand out in the audition, in your recitals, just in life, is just figure out who you are and help yourself become the best of that you can be.
Awesome, wonderful. Who was next? What I don't even remember the order I said. Is that Michael?
Sure. I can't help but have my answer to this strongly colored by the moment we're in, although I've believed this for a long time. If you think that your mission in life is to, practice, win an audition, come to rehearsal, collect a paycheck, play really well, work hard, go home. I think those days have long been over, and now they're really over. I mean, this is going to end, and we're going to go back to doing something more like what we normally do. But still, I think our world is forever changed, and it really had already changed. It's just many of us didn't realize it. So we don't really need any more of those people that don't realize it. We need people who love music, who want music to be a tool to improve the community in the world around us. We want people who want to love music so that they can share it and 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 live it. It's not. It will feel like a job, absolutely, many days, as Denise was saying, and I can definitely attest to that. But you know, if it becomes mechanical, if it becomes transactional, you show up, you play your instrument, you go home, you collect the paycheck. Um, I feel very strongly that there's not a real future for you anymore. So think hard about that. Think how much you love it, and how much you want to use it as a pathway to make an imprint on the world.
You know what I mean?
So well said by everybody. I'll just add that be curious. I think I mentioned it before. I think if we're not curious about what we do, we're not curious about the music that we play, things we love to play, the things that we enjoy listening to, or it could be anything, or things we don't like playing. Just if you're a little bit curious, it gets a little better and a little better, and doors start to open, and you start to see things a little bit differently. And I believe that's how, well, this was taught to me. So I believe this is how it works for me. And if there was anything, I tell my kids, be curious, why ask the questions? Why does this happen? Why is this music this way? Why does the world work this way? Ask those questions. And I think you may not get the answers, but I think the road to getting the answer is just much more valuable to anybody. Why do I not win the audition? That's about, that's like a loaded question right there. Why do I not sound as musical as I should? What is the best? What is the most ideal way of playing? But there is none for an audition. Me and my colleague won, and we're so different. We won at the same time. So it's not like they were looking for a particular player, but I think being curious really helped me all these years to sort of get my brain thinking about what goes on to what I do or life. It doesn't have to be music.
Especially the twins.
Yes. Remote learning. My goodness.
Yeah.
Joe, any final words?
I just thank you all, because I know that during this time, even though we're not necessarily making music with others as often as we'd like, we're investing our time talking to people about music and sharing why we love what we do. And it came through today very clearly, and I'm thankful that our students will have a chance to hear you speak about this, because it's easy to look at what you all get to do in awe and not realize that it takes time and patience. And, you know, it's easy to look at us that we're doing what we love as an 18, 21-year-old and go, wow, I want to do that. And when they hear that it's a real path of joy and struggle and patience, I think that's really optimistic for them to go, okay, they had to do it too. And maybe some of them are doing different things. Michael, I applaud you recently, chamber music stuff in Kansas City, right? And finding ways to do that. Denise, a career as a low horn specialist, you know, and you'll mean your path there with two twins and putting your, like you said, your head in the sand and just doing it. So I just want to say thank you, because your time is valuable, your expertise is valuable, and I am very appreciative of that. So if I can ever repay you all, please don't hesitate to ask.
It would be easy for me to just to say I echo everything Joe just said, and I do. And Denise, you played with our wind ensemble last year. We started a relationship there, you and I knew, you know, Joe from before that. Joe Ming, I remember you hopping around, running around the conservatory with Alice, and getting to know you just a little bit, but we used to smile and laugh, and we're proud of you. We've been profoundly proud of you, and we're thankful for you. And Michael, you're now teaching with us, our amazing flutist. So we all have a relationship here for these kids in some way, as an alum or as someone that interface with them. And I think that's something that is really important for the students too, about, you know, just being a good colleague and being good people, and all of you embody that. And I think you know, Gary last week, those of you that watched last week's episode, Gary talked about just keep your head down and just do it. So I think students that are watching this at UMKC, you've had three more amazing examples to grow and learn from. I hope that you'll take some time to reflect on these words and apply them to your life as growing artists. And we look forward to receiving those great summaries. If you're watching from the outside world that's not a member of the student body here at the conservatory, we are thankful that you've given time to us. We're all in this together. I think everyone in this panel believes that education is the way out of many of the perils of the world. And these people all live a life of giving to the next generation as well, which also humbles me and inspires me to do the same thing. So thanks for spending time with us, everybody. It's a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.
Thank you all.